I'm delighted today to be joined by David Menninger, who's the Senior Vice President and Research Director at Ventana Research. Hi, David.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Can we just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. I've been in and around the data and analytics software market for most of my career, which spans 30 years now. And I spent most of that time on the vendor side, and about 5 years ago, switched over from the vendor side to the research side.
Fantastic. And what are you currently working on at Ventana Research?
So I cover data and analytics for Ventana Research, and we're working on a number of different studies. We do primary market research, so we go out and survey organizations on their use of technology. And so we're doing some research projects around data and analytics. We're doing research projects on big data. We've got an Internet of Things study running, some other studies as well, including machine learning and natural language processing.
Fantastic. Okay, so here's your profile in our platform. This is what the brands that use our software would see. Here we have your profile and bio, and we've had you categorized in the tech industry and your role as a tech professional and management consultant and an industry practitioner based in the US. And you can see here's your authority metric, which is a normalized score for the number of interactions you've received from other influencers. So that's very strong. Down here, we've got an overview of your most engaged network. These are the people that you talk to the most on Twitter. We can also see some of your thought leadership content topics. Nearly half your conversation is around the topic of analytics. You also talk about cloud computing, AI, machine learning, business intelligence, data privacy and protection, data warehouse, and digital transformation. And down here, there's a little bit more information about your engaged network. So 20% of your network are senior management executives and tech professionals. And we also have you mostly in the tech industry, your audience, but then also a small section finance and sports industries as well. Some brand mentions. So Cloudera gets the most share of voice with 35% of brand mentions, followed by SAP, Amazon, Salesforce, and AWS. I just wanted to show you a bit more about some of your content. So if we scroll over here, we see some of the key topics that you're talking about. Ventana comes up quite strong, as well as data gov, and some of the keywords here from your conversations recently. And in terms of hashtags, analytics is definitely the key hashtag. And there's also some around data, AI, data governance, some other key topics around that area. So we recently featured in a Who's Who in Data Management. So this is the report. It was the top influential voices and brands in data management. And you are down here in this section on academics and researchers. Did you know any of these people when you saw this report? Were they new to you? Or?
Well, no, personally, no, not really, but certainly see Kirkborn a lot on Twitter. I've had some interactions. I have met Ellen Friedman personally. I don't really know her that well, but I certainly know of her. Those are probably the two names I knew the best out of that list.
Fantastic. What sort of reaction have you had since you've appeared on this list? Have you had some people talking about it? Have you had any engagement?
A couple mentions. Yep.
Cool. Yep. That's good. So the next question I wanted to ask you is the key topics that you're currently focused on. What trends can you see coming up over the next 5 years that you think people might need to be aware of?
I'm going to start with the biggest trend in the data space is that I think we're in a transition from data at rest to data in motion, right? So, historically, we've recorded data in batches because of technology limitations, right? Data doesn't occur in batches. We record it in batches or we process it in batches. And we're now getting to the point where we have many more things streaming data into organizations. Take IoT devices, for instance, but even the rest of the processing that we do, transactions occur at a point in time, and we're starting to deal with them at the points in time in which they occur. So that's the biggest change that I see happening. The other big trend in data management, I would say, is this inclusive data governance. It used to be that data governance was a disabling technology, right? Data governance was about preventing people from doing things, accessing data they shouldn't access. And now data governance is about finding the data that you need, using a data catalog to enable people in an organization to find the data they need. So now they're willing participants in the data governance process because they're getting something out of it instead of just being prevented from, having to go around the IT department to get the data they want.
Wow, that's really interesting. And what would you say some of the most innovative companies are doing in those areas at the moment?
So we see the use of machine learning is really interesting in the software industry itself. So not the application of machine learning to analytics and to data, but applying machine learning to the processes of working with data. So how should I join these tables? Simple example, right? How is Joe using this data? Joe is very much like Dave, and Joe is doing this with the data, so maybe I want to consider doing that with the data. Or based on my patterns of usage, right? We, the software company, vendor, product, presented this information to you 10 times, and you only clicked on it twice. So that's probably not a very, strong indication that that's useful to you. Yet these other presentations you clicked on many times. So those are the types of things that we're starting to see permeate the software world that we think are going to have a very positive impact on the way people work with data.
Fantastic. And who are some of the influencers that you follow in the space at the moment?
Well, clearly I follow my colleagues at Ventana Research. But outside of the Ventana Research realm, I follow Merv Adrian. I follow Neil Radin. Neil and I have known each other for a long time. Tony Baer. There's a group of us who meet regularly at all the various vendor events and industry conferences, and we all know each other and see each other pretty regularly. At least when we were traveling, we did. Now we just see each other virtually.
Yeah, it's all changed. Well, that leads me on to my next question, actually. So what impacts have you seen in the tech industry recently due to COVID?
I think in the tech industry, we as analysts probably were doing a lot of this more than others. But, the concept of virtual meetings, we don't have to be in the same place to be able to communicate, just like we're doing now. Obviously, I think the communication is richer if you can be in the same place, but we can get a lot more done, meet a lot more vendors if we have a series of virtual meetings as opposed to traveling to different locations to meet with everybody. So clearly that's an influence. I think the whole notion of capturing interactions and trying to figure out how to process those interactions, back to this notion of machine learning, right? The more that these things are virtual, the more that they can be processed electronically and potentially mined for useful information.
Interesting. So outside of your key topics, are there any other key topics that you're interested in as well?
Well, so I cover analytics as well as data. And so I'm clearly interested in all the things that are going on in the analytics world in terms of AI and machine learning. I talked about some of the research studies we're doing there. And then as an application of those areas, I cover Internet of Things. So how are people collecting data from Internet of Things devices? How are they analyzing that data? So that's a relevant part of my research as well. And then clearly applying these things, our focus as a firm tends to be on the business side of these equations. So sure, we want to understand the technology, but we really want to understand how do they impact the business? How does an organization improve its bottom line as a result of applying these technologies?
Fantastic. Just one last question. So if I was a brand and I wanted to partner with you as an influencer, what would be the best way for me to connect with you?
Just reach out to us via email. david.menninger@ventanaresearch.com is nice and simple, or you can fill out our contact form page on our website.
Brilliant. Oh, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today, David.
Thanks, Joe. It was nice to speak with you.